Hello, Mum. It's great, isn't it? I love the way kids do that whenever there's a camera, telly camera.
But it's not only kids.
No, I know. But they're still kids, also.
Yeah.
Kids as kids, whatever height they are.
Recording. Okay. What can you tell me about the beginning of Coldcut? How did you get together, and what was Coldcut in the first place?
Right. Well, I met Matt in 1987 at Reckless Records in Berwick Street in London, where I was working part-time 2 days a week, buying and selling records. And he had a tape, which I listened to and I really liked. And so he came back a few days later and we got together. And that tape eventually came out as Say Kids What Time Is It, which was our first record, which was, we did 500 only, and it was accredited, or it is accredited as being the first sampling record sort of from the UK, basically.
But you didn't really use samples?
No, as such, you know, we used samples in a looser context. We didn't use a sampler. We used 2 turntables and a mixer, and we made it in Matt's bedroom. And when we went to the pressing plant to get it pressed, we did it all ourselves. And we thought we might get caught for infringement of copyright, so we only did 500, and we made up a bogus name, i.e. Coldcut, to come out under, and shrink wrapped them to make them look like they were American. And then I sold them through by basically going around the record shops in my van and saying, do you want to buy them? And if they did, they bought them. If they didn't, then walked out. And then also we used to do this thing called Caster, which was like a big weekend event. And there used to be record stalls there. And so I got the guy that did all those record stalls to sell them as well. And we sold out pretty quickly. And before we knew it, there was loads of people like searching us out. So we were off really, and we made some more records. Did that Greedy Beats, Music Maker Beats and Pieces, and so it went on. Do you want the full history? I can carry on.
Not the full history. But then, the first time I heard about Coldcut was like I read about this early stuff, but I couldn't buy it obviously, because at that time import records weren't as easy to get as today. So most people in Germany recognize Coldcut for the first time more as a pop act.
That's right, yes.
So how did this happen, and how did you felt about it when you were like in the top 40?
Right. Well, we'd made quite a lot of underground records basically on our own label, and one night we met a guy from a record company who wanted us to do a remix of a band called The Society, who are a sort of fairly dodgy indie band. And so we had a listen to the tape, and I think basically Matt and I said, well, that's pretty crap really, but have a listen to this. And we played the stuff that we'd been doing to them, and they were really into it and wanted to put out Beats and Pieces and wanted to do some more stuff with us. And we had this idea to do this track, which had been a joke for ages, called Doctor in the House, based like on a sort of combination of an old British comedy programme called Doctor in the House and a brilliant acid record by Adonis called Rocking Down the House. And it was just those sort of, putting those two things together as the combination that sparked that off. When we met them, they said they had they knew of a singer, which was Yaz, and so we hooked up, and bosh, that was it. We did Doctor in the House in like 4 days or something, and next thing we know, we're in the charts. So it's pretty mad kind of introduction really, because we hadn't planned to do it, and hadn't planned really to make a pop record. It was just like continuation of making records, and it was fun for a while. It was really exciting, and but soon the sort of major machine started to grind you down. It's basically a big polisher. Like, it takes in these lovely rough pebbles and polishes them up, and some turn into gems and some get discarded just because they've got faults that the roughness covered but the polishing exposed basically. And after a while it just got very boring, and it took us, the whole sort of machination of the industry and the business side of it took us more and more away from the music, which was our love. So fairly soon the kind of arguments set in with record companies not understanding what Matt and I wanted to do, and why wouldn't we just make another house record, and people won't understand it if you put out after Doctoring House like a reggae record featuring Junior Reid. And so but we proved wrong that you could actually do that and you could succeed. but we felt it'd be better to withdraw from that. And around about sort of 91, we started ninjatune effectively, and the idea was that we'd set that up, we'd run it as our own label, we'd go back to square one, we'd just experiment for a bit, make tracks, not necessarily put them out under our own name because we still had a lot of legal difficulties with all of that side of things, and generally plot a course and escape, you know, and we do it in our way and in our time, which is what we've done. I'm very sort of proud of that, really.
I mean, the first ninjatune record that I remember were like this jazz break series.
Yes.
When that came out, I thought, okay, now they're doing like a DJ label with some break beats, but from that point it really kind of developed too much.
Yeah, yeah. It took a long time with ninjatune to find our feet, basically, and the idea of doing the djfood series and inventing djfood as a character was that, you know, we were DJs and we enjoyed DJing, and the pop thing had taken our DJing away from us to a certain extent, and we wanted to get back. And as always, there weren't enough records to play that we wanted to play with because we needed things to mix and mess about with, so we made some. And we could feel like the jazzy kind of hip-hop thing coming on out of the James Brown rare groove sampling scenario that had happened previously. Gangstar, blah blah blah, that was all sort of starting, so we could feel that it was right to do that. And so we did that really in quite a business-like way and made a decision that that was going to be our sort of off-the-shelf item that would earn the label recognition with DJs and some money, you know. And it has sold, and it's not had a short shelf life like a lot of records, you know. And in fact, djfood has turned into an artist in its theirs, ours own right. You know, it's quite a sort of mad invention. And then we just started doing loads of stuff with friends, with people we liked, you know, with people we met, experiments, and so there was sort of quite a lot of incoherence to start with Ninja. But when we got rid of like all of the record company bullshit, and we made our last sort of major label album, which was for Arista, which was another kind of typical nightmare scenario. We'd been dropped by them, we were very glad to escape. And at that point, which was like 1993, we decided to concentrate fully on sorting Ninja out, basically, which we did, and, you know, making sure that it was a decent label and that we had some good acts and that it had a good reputation and a good kind of attitude to things, the way that we always wanted it to be. And then when that was settled, it was time to make our next record, which is what we're doing at the moment, effectively.
And is there a certain musical genre that you're trying to follow with ninjatunes, or is it more about the attitude how the labels run and what the attitude that the other people?
Yeah, it's got a lot to do with the attitude of the people, you know. Everybody's opinion who works at Ninja is important as far as, you know, Matt and I and Peter are concerned, and we listen to what people have to say, and, you know, it's kind of network sort of vibe in a way, and we've got a whole crew of people. They don't all necessarily work for us full time, people pass by, and there's a lot of input basically, and that's the way that we like it, and we sort of filter that and shape it and, you know, present it. And similarly with the bands, you know, I really like all the bands that are signed to the label. We won't sign people unless we really like them. We don't sign loads because we want to spend time on those that we've got rather than just, you know, churning it out and throwing stuff at the wall. We are aware of kind of quality control and keeping that sort of thing, you know, sorted. And obviously the pressure gets greater as the label's sort of perceived, whatever, you know, press kind of blah 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 grows, as it seems to be at the moment. You know, there is a certain pressure to kind of conform to what people expect Ninja to be. But undoubtedly we will just continue putting stuff out that we all feel happy with, really. And hopefully, you know, other people will understand what we're doing, really. I think they do so far. And, you know, it's not about being up your arse and sort of completely arty all the time. There's a big element about that, but there's also a big element about having fun and, you know, letting things happen and relax and, you know, just doing it, letting it happen kind of natural, but with a lot of loving care and attention, really.
I think it's obvious that ninjatunes is a label that has a certain style of humor.
Yes, I would hope so. Yeah.
I mean, you're all coming from a DJ side of things. How important is that aspect, the whole club aspect, for the label now? Because on the same hand, you're not like the typical dance label, and you're not really part of the so-called dance industry.
No, I know. I mean, we mirror what they do. You know, Matt and I actually kind of set some of the groundwork rules when we first put out Say Kids, in a way, in terms of promotion and, you know, marketing and having ideas and being different to what everybody else was doing. But obviously in 10 years all of those things have become like over and over and overused, and that's the whole sort of reason that we step out of that side of things, you know. I don't know, we just do what we want to do, and I think if you do what you want to do and you're lucky enough to do it and you work hard for it, then you will succeed, and it doesn't matter what the other people are doing, really, you know.
But it's still important for you that the records that you're putting out can be played in certain clubs and that.
Oh yeah, you know, I mean, we have our ninjatune night, Stealth, and again, you know, we did it for a year pretty much at the Blue Note once a month, and put a lot of work into it and made it into a real good show and had a wicked time, and people, it's just brilliant, you know. Place completely rammed, people getting in through the windows because they couldn't get in through the doors, all that kind of things. You know, loads of really good people, Talvin Singh playing there, Square Pusher playing there, you know. It was just, you know, a great time. We're doing actually a one-off next Thursday with the Herbalizer and all of us back at it again. We'll probably do some more, but again, we don't like overdoing it. You know, there's no point in caning it until everybody's so tired that, you know, when you actually do present something, people realise that. And it is very difficult because people are always asking you, you know, I mean, Matt and I could be like going all over the world doing stuff everywhere, and we never get any records made and never get any work done at ninjatune, you know. We have to keep it down, and it's a fine line, you know. But I'd hate if people pay money to come and see us, you know. Sometimes they're going to be disappointed because we are wayward and we do what we want to do, but hopefully people understand that and they pay money and they get like a good show. They don't get like, you know, a load of old bollocks and not the DJs turning up and what have you. But it's hard trying to sustain that sort of thing, but we care, or we try and care anyway.
What are you getting out of DJing these days? What do you still like about it?
I'm a vampire with DJing. I'm a vampire. I'm a DJ vampire. I'm going to change my name. I suck the young blood out of all of the clubbers, basically, and thus remain the Dorian Gray of the dance music industry. I just enjoy it, man. It's just great, you know, seeing people like me, really, and all of the people I know having a good time, and there's no attitude, really, and there's no, like, big ego shit. There's a big problem with London because a lot of people are too cool to talk to each other, you know, which is bollocks, you know, it's bollocks. We need to talk to everybody. That's why the Bristol scene's pretty cool, because they're all pretty friendly, you know, and we trundle about all over the place, and we try and avoid that sort of London-centric sort of we're London, we're the best stuff, because that's crap as well, you know. Every sort of centre has its own peculiarity, slightly different sausages or cheeses, you know, they're not all the same.
But do you think you could make this music and run this label in another city, in another place?
That's a kind of impossible question to answer, really, because undoubtedly if we did it in another city it would be different, you know, and it may not be so successful, but it may be more successful, so it's difficult to tell. But yeah, I mean, obviously as where you live and where people operate is going to have an effect, and London's a very fast moving, self-referential place, and so the sort of music that comes out of London does reflect that. But you know, London's hot for anything really that's good, you know, now, thank God. For a long time it was really boring here, really boring. It's just house this, house that, house your mother, house your father, you know, nightmare. And eventually we broke it, a sort of, you know, conglomerate of various different people managed to break that and open again the sort of doors to a more broader, you know, kind of thing, rather than this narrow definition of dance music, i.e. house music, you know, and all its derivatives. Terrible.
How did you came up with the name Ninjatunes in the first place?
Well, going back again to 1990, we were in Japan doing a tour, having a really good time, and Matt and I saw this like mad program about the ninjas and couldn't understand it because it was Japanese and my Japanese isn't that good, and so we were just watching it, and you know, it's very good actually. I advise anybody to watch like television with the sound down, because you can see the joins basically, you know. And we both got the idea that a ninja in fact wasn't a kind of killer warrior or anything. it was a trick master that like popped up here with trapdoors and disappeared there and had this sort of cloak and could kind of, you know, it was all done with mirrors basically, and it was quite theatrical. And they were a bunch of old troopers that used to go from town to town entertaining people with their skills, and that sort of reminded Matt and I of what we were, really. A bunch of old, you know, shiny curtains and mirrors and tricks and smoke and stuff. It's the same old stuff, you know, it works a treat. You put a few flashing lights on, a few glittery things, turn the sound up, and, you know, you're off, basically. And it's all done with mirrors, as I said. So that's why we named it Ninjatune anyway. I've rambled on a bit about that one. That was sort of vaguely it. The next morning after we'd both seen this program independently, we both went, yeah, Ninja's wicked, yeah, I'm really into that. And then we just got more and more into it and sort of developed, you know, our Ninja thesis, really, I suppose.
I mean, Ninjatunes is very much identified with this DIY culture thing.
Yeah.
So, what's the concept of the label, how you run it, and what makes it different from other labels?
Well, you know, there are other totally independent labels. I don't know, you know, because I don't go to other labels, so I don't know what makes it different other than, you know, we haven't got a very sort of hierarchical structure here. It is quite a loose sort of collective, and we like people that are self-motivated, and, you know, we just try and work things out and do it on that level. And it's like, I'm happy to make a tea, empty the bins, and or, you know, record a mix for the radio, and we like everybody to be able to do that and sort of do everything, basically. It's like Strictly Kev, he's part of djfood, he DJs out as djfood, he does a lot of our artwork, or coordinates the artwork, you know, so he's got more than just like a few bits and pieces in the pot. And similarly, like a lot of the other people that work for us do input a lot of different things. So I think that's possibly different. We seem to have a very good relationship with our artists, I think. So far nobody's complaining anyway, which is quite unusual as well for record companies from my experience. We're completely independent, as I said, and even continuing to try and be independent in America, and as much as possible to link up with people throughout territories to understand our philosophy and what we want to do. So I think that's probably different. You know, we don't kind of pander to the scene. You understand what I mean? Like, we don't, you know, we just do what we want to do and what we enjoy doing, and not like, oh right, so this is big, so we're going to have to put out one of these records, you know, so whatever it is this week that, you know, the style magazines say that it's going to be, you know, Ragga records played at 45 through a computer, time stretched and mixed with, you know, I don't know, whatever latest old press bollocks is, basically. You know, I'm not into that. We just do music that we enjoy and that is fun to do. And I think everybody at Ninja has that attitude, really.
What are you looking for in a tune when you want to release a record? Or what makes you take the decision to say, yeah, I want to put out this?
I don't know, it's not just the record, it's the person that makes the record, and sort of getting on with that person and understanding what they're trying to achieve. And, you know, obviously the music is very important. It has to have a certain sort of style, individuality to a certain extent, you know, or there's just a certain amount of funk as well, I think is quite an important factor. They may call it trip hop now, they may call it hip hop, they may call it rare groove, but it's funk, you know, first and foremost. And that used to be called R&B, funny enough. And R&B now used to be called swing beat. And for a while, it was called drum and bass when it was just drums and bass and break beats. But that's jungle now. So it's all a bit mad with the labels anyway. But it's got like a good amount of funk in it, and I like people's work that are funks, basically. And that's a very difficult thing to explain. It's just a feeling, you know. It's just a mathematical sort of pattern that pleases you in a really warm and sort of, you know, human way, really. It's difficult to describe, and a record that does that to me, you just feel it in your guts, really. You know, I like stuff that's out there and that people are kind of pushing a limit and stuff like. You know, the remixes that Square Pusher did for us were brilliant, and you know, Funky Porcini's sort of, you know, constantly kind of having a go at people's sort of barriers really with what he does, you know. And the Herbalize, again, what they do is it's kind of very warm and earthy, but you know, it's traditional in many respects, but it still has a different sort of context. And live, they were just wicked. They just rock the house, you know. And the same with all the other bands, really. And then all nice people, most of them, you know. That's very important, really. And they kind of understand us as well and what we're trying to do, you know, and where the label's trying to go. So that you become an honorary ninja if you fulfill those criteria, basically.
Just mentioned remixes. I mean, with your Eric B. and Rakim remix, that was really kind of an instrumental remix for the whole remix culture that we have now. So what was the concept or the idea when you did that remix?
Right. Cool. The Eric B. and Rakim remix. Well, you know, Matt and I were DJing out quite a bit, and so we'd be messing about in clubs, trying out various different mixes and ideas. And in fact, the Ofra Hazza part that's in the Eric B. remix was something that I was mixing across all sorts of different beats because it was just so nice, you know. And we were asked by Julian Palmer, who I knew, to come and do the mix, who was the A&R man there at 4th and Broadway at the time. And we just went into their studios, and I think it was like the 3rd time we'd ever been into a proper recording studio. And they didn't have any multi-tracks, so we had like 10 copies of the record. And there was no sampler. So we just started work and started at the beginning and carried on basically and sort of made it, you know. It's quite funny that in those days that was the way you had a rough idea, but you kind of got a good introduction going, and off we went. Had to get into the rap somehow, you know, so eventually managed to work out a way of sort of incorporating it, and then wanted to take it off somewhere else. And you know, you just try loads and loads of things out, but then it was very fresh. You know, a lot of people hadn't tried out those things. You know, it wasn't that our kind of our arsenal of slices of stuff that we wanted to use was particularly original, really. I mean, a lot of it people know and have discovered and used in many, many records. I mean, on the Eric B. and Rakim record, we used what is commonly known as the soul-to-soul beat, which is like, actually there's about sort of 4 or 5 different break beats that has the same pattern but have various different other things going on in them, and it's just a really funky beat, you know. And we put that through a lot of treatment effectively, and then that was sampled by loads and loads of people and used on their records, you know. But it was just to make a record that worked and really rocked the house and freaked people's heads out, and it was the whole way through as well. I bet they can't deal with this, and there was sort of mischief really. Matt and I were like pushing it a bit to see what, you know, how sort of out there we could get it. But I suppose we've got pop sensibilities, unfortunately, as well, to a certain extent. So, and you can't avoid it sometimes, you know, this sort of wanting to make things like nice and neat, really, I suppose. And it's just like doing food. That's why we called him djfood, because food's just the same. It's a bunch of ingredients that anybody can have, but it's all about how you put them together and the variants that you use in that process, you know. Funny.
But especially this remix really worked. I remember when I heard it for the first time when it came out, I didn't really understand. I didn't really know what it was, but it just...
Yeah, it was a culmination of quite a lot of things happening. You know, the groundwork had been laid by us with Say Kids, then was Bomb the Bass and S Express and Soul to Soul, and we all knew each other, and you know, we were on the radio, some of us together, and DJing at each other's clubs, and you know, we were all like, oh yeah, you're making this, I'm doing this, I've signed to them, they're doing this, blah blah blah, this is my new record. And you know, that still goes on to this day with various different crews of people that we interact with, you know.
But now you're interacting like on an international level. Yes,
which is fun, you know, great fun, really. Because again, there's a bunch of people, enough to sort of sustain ourselves, really. It's a two-way street, you know, so it's quite important.
How did you get in touch with Bruder and Dorfmeister, who did the track for one of your compilations?
I think it was just like that first 12 of theirs came out, you know, it was wicked. Phone them up, hello, we're Coldcut, you know, can we do something? Probably something like that. That's how we've always worked. It's like with Junior Reid, we went to the record company, said we want to work with Junior Reid. Matt and I were really into his stuff when he was in Black Uhuru for that period, and thought he had a wicked voice, so we just went and sorted out trying to get in touch with it. And it's the same way that we approach other people. I mean, sometimes people just kind of come to us, whatever, you know. If we want to do something, we have an idea, then we go after it.
The whole remix thing now is kind of different compared to the late 80s. How do you feel about the state of remix culture, and what do you like about it and what not?
Remixes, yeah, I mean, there's the sort of school of slinger breakbeat behind it, and that's it, remixing, which I deplore, you know, and there's the make it into a Euro house record school of remixing, which I deplore, and then there's the kind of Wagon Christ, Luke Vibert, you know, Phila Brasilia attitude to remixes, which is put behind that original track, or usually just the vocal performance or the melody or the hook, a decent backing, you know. It's about setting a stone in a proper way, you know, so that you can wear it as a piece of jewellery, effectively. And some people have got it, some people haven't. And unfortunately, a lot of people just do it for the money and churn it, you know, and they've got their crew. They wear that crew out, they get another crew, they wear that crew out, and they churn it. And, you know, by the time the cokes run out and their head's been up their arse for too long, they're out of fashion and some other young buck's taken over, you know, and that I deplore. But where it's done properly, it's right, you know. I mean, we'll take remixes if we want to do them, if we respect the artists or if we need the money, you know. But we don't have to lick arse or do things to anybody's plan. We just do, what we want to do. We did a remix of Elvis Costello, which was brilliant. He's been one of my heroes for a long time. I just think he's a brilliant, you know, songwriter, fantastic voice. And that was great doing that, you know. But we've turned down more people than I care to mention, really. You know. Oh, and then we'll do things like we did a mix for Small Fish with Spine, who's Neotropics' other kind of bag for a small India label, for, like, you know, just for because it was nice and we wanted to do it and we like Neotropic, and so that's it, so we do it. So there's all sorts of reasons for doing it, but there's an awful lot of crap about.
When you're working on one of your tracks, do you have a certain approach that you use every time, like start with a beat or looking for a melody first, or how? Yeah,
I mean, we have various different sort of routes to a track. There is the kind of get a wicked beat together, get a wicked bass line, and, you know, that's 50% of it quite often. But I'm always very keen on things that I call head noises, like things that hook you, basically, a melody, a hook, you know, that old thing. So get two of those and then you are pretty sorted, really, you know. But things just appeal to me, and I have sort of magpie tendency to collect things randomly, really, little bits of shards of sound, really, with sometimes no real plan, but I'll get all the shards together in one space and make a track out of it, and eventually out of that, you know, something will happen. It's like with Atomic Moog, that originally started because I've been to Canada and I bought some really weird Moog records which were just brilliant, you know, and so I thought, I'm into some of this, so let's have a go and see if we can do something like it. And then all the French nuclear sort of tests, because it was done that around about the same time that was going on. That was when I got the idea for you know, whacking in a theme, and that was it, and that off that went. Sometimes things are just randomly created. You know, we make lots of breakbeats, and we've done a new track on a new take basically on Beats and Pieces, which was our third single. I can't remember now. And we created all brand new breaks pretty much, apart from a few classics. But we wanted to create a lot of brand new breaks, so we did that by programming all of those up, recording them all, treating them all sonically, cutting records from those sounds, then cutting those records up to make the track. So that's how the new track has been made. So it's a sort of arse about face way of doing it, but it works so well because you can make your own things and you still have this sort of DJ dexterity. And then we're developing things for our laptops that take this sort of concept further and chop stuff up, and hopefully they'll create quite a lot of tracks. I've always liked the idea, like you have a blank sheet of paper, and that's very frightening for a lot of people. So the best thing to do is to take that blank sheet of paper and screw it up, and then flatten it out again, and then start, because you've messed the paper up. You might as well just get on with doing it. So kind of take that attitude to things quite often. Sometimes it's a process of making something and doing it really, really nicely, getting like a nice melody and doing it quite conventionally, and then working backwards and slowly kind of removing all the nice bits and replacing it with like weirder, more interesting, more kind of abstract, just chiseling away, carving away sonically with sound.
You just mentioned the Atomic Moog single, which to me sounds very, very different from the old Coldcut stuff.
Right.
Musically. So what can one expect from like the new album that you're just about to finish?
I don't know really. I mean, it's funny because I think to me it sounds like Coldcut. It's interesting. Maybe to other people it doesn't sound like Coldcut. There's just like a load of mad stuff really. There's a CD-ROM that comes with it, which have got lots of toys on it that people can play with and sort of create things themselves. We've done tracks with Jimpster and Pretty Purdy, which is quite interesting. So there's a kind of jazz jungle vibe, which was fun to do. Jimpster are a wicked band from Manchester, and Pretty Purdy is one of the greatest drummers in the world. We did a track with a poet from London called Selena Saliva, which is really good fun. There's all sorts of weird things really. There's some tracks that we've done with Offshore, which are a bunch of eco activists. I hate that word, but basically that's what they are. And that involves kind of samples of things that went on when they were doing demonstrations at Claremont Road and at various different M11 demonstrations. And we've taken quite a lot of the noises and the sounds from those demonstrations and made a track with those, with her, and a video to sort of publicise that whole tip, hopefully, and get people aware of what's going on. What else? Yeah, it's just us sort of messing about with our stuff, really, and making noise, and hopefully people will like it.
What are the reasons for you developing this multimedia side?
Well, because it would be extremely boring just to carry on doing the same sort of DJ thing, and that has to change. And it was wickedly exciting when Matt and I first discovered samplers, because it was just brilliant, for what we wanted to do. It just suited us so well for our attitude and mentality to things. And the whole sort of multimedia thing, it's the tools that are provided now are very, very exciting. And the web, the internet, the CD-ROMs, music, software, that's all extremely exciting, as exciting as sampling was, which to a certain extent can't go any further at the moment, because there isn't a lot more that you can do with it. Though whenever I say that, I do tend to be proved wrong, which is great. So hopefully that will happen.
But it takes a bit more to consume all this multimedia sides, because I think most of people who are buying a record buy it for the music. They won't listen to it in the car or at home. But when you have like this multimedia stuff, being like a video, internet, or CD-ROM, it takes some more hardware, and you have to take a bit more time to get it. Do you think that people are really up for it? And
I think it's going to take a generation before people will kind of treat CD-ROMs and a music package coming with more than just the sound. I think it will take that sort of time for it to sink in, and for it to be normal to go out and buy something like that, and to actually want that over and above just a sort of sound-only release. But you have to do it. There's no point in letting that be a resistance for you. I think it's important to put it out now and state your case and try and get people into it really, because that's like the way forward. It's really exciting, and there is more depth to it. I mean, it can be treated in the same kind of lightweight manner. Here's my biography, here's a few videos of me on holiday in some expensive luxury beach wear, you know, if you want. Or it can be a load of really interesting, useful things that are pretty kind of time consuming. But yeah, people have to choose because there's too much, you know. Do you want to surf, sound, you know, what do you want? Video? What do you want, you know? All three? Stay at home, go out? Cinema experience, telly experience, computer experience, family experience, you know, very difficult. So, but you know, just don't let it get you down really.
One of the other groups that we're going to feature in this episode are Massive Attack, and they're coming from like the same area as you, like developing their style of music with sound system, warehouse parties. So what do you think about them, and can you do you see their kind of similarities or?
Oh yeah, I mean, I love Massive Attack. I just think that they have an amazing touch really. You know, I don't think there's anything of theirs that they've done that I don't really like. You know, and a lot of the records are just so beautiful they could make you cry quite easily, you know. And they have that sort of lovely ease that only comes out of doing it from time, you know, and that shows, and that's what I like about them really. And they do a lot of similar things to us. They say warehouse parties, blah blah blah. You know, from the sound system days. Matt used to go to scratching fests that quite a lot of that crew used to scratch at, and you know, there was, you know, a great scene going on in Bristol. I think there still is to a certain extent, but it's kind of been overplayed, unfortunately, due to the success of Massive and Portishead, etc. There's a sort of people think that Bristol's an all singing, all dancing place. There is a scene there, and it's really nice, and it's really chilled and relaxed, and you can understand when you go there the music, you know, quite well. Definitely.
And what do you like about the music of Kruder and Dorfmeister?
It's, I suppose, again, it's a similar thing. It's very difficult to define. It goes back to that funk thing that I was talking about. But there's just a sexiness in their music, really, you know, that gets you, you know, and the choice of sounds is always very nice, and it's well produced, and it feels lush, and you know, it's not stiff. A lot of people's work can be really, really stiff, particularly with kind of quantized machine sort of stuff that's available, and that's why I like both Massive and Kruder and Dorfmeister, is they have a sort of organic feel to their work. And I think similarly we have in ours, and in ninjatune there is the right amount of human interface between the machine, you know, and the human. Whereas some music just goes far too far the other direction. You know, Kraftwerk had that balance right, and you know, it's a very difficult thing to keep obtaining so far. Well, I think Massive have done it very well. Again, with Kruder and Dorfmeister, I don't think there's a lot that they've put out that I don't like, and they do. You know, they could be accused of falling into the sort of remixing syndrome that is a danger, because you get a sound, you get hot, and you get everybody asking you, and it's a lot easier just to do that, take the money, than it is to do your own work sometimes. But I don't think they have. What they've turned out is brilliant. The mix they did for Alex Reese was superb piece of work. Outrageous.
Okay, for last question, what is the concept of your radio show on Kiss FM, and how did this all start?
Coldcut solid steel. 1 till 3 on Kiss. Concept, a sort of broad brush stroke really of mixed up stuff that veers from the insane to the beautiful and back again. That's the radio show. You know, difficult to describe. Sometimes I'll do like a 30-minute reggae section. We're getting loads of we use a lot of aeroplane effects in our radio show.
Okay.
So where was I? I was so rudely interrupted by the plane. Coldcut solid steel. It's a kind of broad brushstroke really of kind of from the insane to the beautiful and back again really. It's sometimes do a 30-minute mix of revival reggae tunes, other times play 2 Fela Kuti records, and that's 30-minute mix. There's basically 4 30-minute sections, and there's no talking. The computer does a bit of talking and sort of generally kind of introduces us and what's going on, but we don't list all the records that are played. We don't give loads of shouts out to our mates. We don't big up a lot of stuff. We might do ads for our club from time to time, but generally it's the music that comes first, and we don't play an awful lot of our own music like non-stop so that people get sick and tired of listening to Coldcut stuff. That's not what it's about as well. I mean, there's so much brilliant new music that comes out that it's hard enough to try and feature all of that when, you know, it's not actually a lot of records when you count it up. But we do a lot of live jams, which is great fun, you know, so we just get everything going in the studio and bosh, do 30 minutes, and sometimes we'll just broadcast them straight off like that. Sometimes we'll do a bit of work and broadcast them afterwards. So it's just having, again, it's fun, and hopefully that comes through, and you know, we do put quite a lot into it, spend usually a whole day sort of working it out and recording it and stuff. I'd like to do more, but it's the time factor, unfortunately. You know, I'd be happy to record it all digitally and you know, spend hours fanning about with it and making it really sorted. But it's rough and ready, you know, but that's the way it goes. It's live and direct, so that's what you get, you know. It's certainly more fun that way.
Okay.
Coolio.
Thank you very much.
Coolio. Right, and I'm going to get on with it now. Vicious little spikes. Careful. Great. So I'll see you next door, possibly.
Yeah. So when